But I am going to talk about the McLarens. Not the ones that made our delicious shortbread, but the McLarens, well, the best bargainer in all of the McLaren family was Katie. Katie McLaren. And that was how she found herself, 13 years old, on the way to the market, even though she didn't want to be there today. Her mother had gone into labor. Could the twins go? Could someone else go? But no. The family needed supplies, and anyone else in the family would surely have spent 2 or 3 times as much. So she had her cape on, and she hustled through the market, and she did make some very good deals. She was a master bargainer. She liked riddles and puzzles and games, and bargaining was just the game she loved the most. She only had one more thing to get, a whetstone for her father. And in the market, there was a tent full of bibs and bobs just down here at the end of the lane. There was an old, kindly couple that she just started to get to know who really liked to play the game as well. She walked into the tent, and it was so beautiful. The goods were fantastic, made out of silks and wool. The jewelry, oh, it shone and glistened. Oh yes, there were whetstones, 7 of them, perfect. And there were potions and ointments, and the elderly couple, they were waiting on a gentleman down at the end of the counter. So Katie looked around, and there on the floor there was a little pot of ointment that the lid had fallen off. Well, she reached down and she picked it up, and trying to put the lid back on, she got a little bit on her finger, and her eye started to itch, and she rubbed it, and oh, the world changed. In the tent were not fantastic, beautiful goods, but worn tatters and rags. The jewelry was not glistening and silver and gold, it was dross. And those whetstones, only one of the 7 was sound. The rest would fall apart at the little tiniest bit of pressure. What is going on? And Katie looked at the kindly old couple at the end of the counter, and they were neither kindly or even human. They had an unearthly pallor, and their eyes were metallic, and oh, the face. Well, Katie was much too good a bargainer to let any of this show on her face. She put the ointment under some of the dross and the one good whetstone, and she called out to the couple, "I'll give you 1 silver for this." And they had every right to expect a back and forth. She knew that. And the gentleman, if she could still call him that, said, "We'll take 5 silvers for that," as he finished up with the gentleman. And to all of their surprise, Katie threw 5 silvers down, swept everything into her basket, and said, "Done," and hurried out of the tent before they could stop her. She couldn't wait to get home and tell her mother and tell the family. But when Katie McLaren got home, her life had changed forever. She had a new baby sister, but none of the McLaren children had a mother anymore. 3 weeks had gone by, and Katie, who had full charge of her little sister, alternated between thinking that the sun danced when this little baby smiled, and wondering how the pipes of war had gotten into her lungs when she cried and screamed. She was singing, trying to get the babe to calm down, and she sang the lullaby her mother had sung. How can there be a cherry that has no stone? It's the only song that quieted little Lainey. The little red gold curls framing her face. At last my baby's sleeping, there was no crying. She set the baby down gently in her basket. They were in the front garden. She turned around to milk the goats when she heard a bang of the front gate. It had not woken her sister. She turned around to warn whoever was coming down their lane to be more quiet. It was an old woman, a stranger. And she came right up to Katie, and Katie couldn't help but smile. The woman said, I'm after your father, Dan McLaren. Oh, said Katie. Well, he's in the back field. She spared a glance for her sleeping sister, and the old woman said, I will watch your sleeping bear while you go and fetch your father. Without another moment's thought, Katie was up and around to the back of the house, running to the field, wondering what was impelling her to do this. She wouldn't normally have left her sister to run for Pa, but she called him, and when the two of them came back around the house, the woman was gone. They ran to the basket, but her sister was still sleeping in the basket. Though Katie thought she looked a little pale. She was mewling, quietly crying, which wasn't like her little sister at all. Katie picked her up, tried to sing, tried to feed her, tried to quiet her, and she couldn't. And in the meantime, the McLarens' luck seemed to change altogether. There was no milk from the cows. The fields wouldn't produce. Each one of her 7 brothers had lost money out of their pockets on the road. She did not know what was going on, but it was market day again, and she took the cape that she had not worn since the day her mother passed. And as she was tucking her sister inside it, she felt something in the pocket. That ointment. Guided by she knew not what, she put a little on her eye and looked at her sister, maybe hoping to see some reason why she was so pale and sickly. But she did not see her little sister at all. There in the basket was a tiny little man with a red gold beard, doing his best to pretend to be a sick infant and looking like he was having a marvelous time. Who are you? Said Katie. What have you done with my sister? So you've noticed at last. I told Queen Zell that you are a sharp one, that you would notice. She didn't believe me, so she made me stay here, but now that you've discovered it, I can go. You'll not go anywhere, said Katie. You'll bring me to my sister. All right, said the little man, and he took Katie's hands, and he laid a finger on the side of his nose, and whoosh, they were flying up above the house, above the village, above the glen, over the forest, and the wind was whipping her eyes until tears formed in them, and the next thing she knew, she had landed right in front of the fairy hill. I don't want to see Queen Zell myself, little girl. You go in by your own son. And he gave her a big shove. Katie thought she was going to break her nose against the hill, but instead she went right through like it was a door. And as she went through, she looked around. This was truly a magnificent throne room, for there was a throne at the other end, and hangings and jewels and gold and treasure everywhere she looked. But Katie didn't care. She marched right up to that throne, for on it was sitting a woman in a crown who looked suspiciously like the old woman who had stolen her sister. What have you done with my baby sister? Oh, so you've found me out. You don't even bow when you see your queen. I am the queen of the fairies in this region, after all. I'll not bow, said Katie, for her anger was so great. I want you to return my sister. How could you steal her from us? Well, it was easy. You left her unattended in a basket. I just picked her up and took her home. I'll have you know, we've gotten all of the McLaren's luck through your tie to this little one that we took home. Bring my sister to me, said Katie, wondering how she had the temerity in front of royalty, but she was just so desperate. Bring your sister to you? I understood that you were quite the bargainer. Have you no games, no riddles, nothing to offer me? Gold, silver, something? No, said Katie, but her mind was going, a riddle. Surely she knew a riddle. How can there be a chicken that has no bone? To her surprise, the queen looked puzzled, confounded, and then very, very angry. What kind of question is that? I don't keep chickens. Chicken without a bone, chicken without a bone. There's no such thing. Oh, said Katie, but there is. A chicken, when it's piping, it has no bone. Fine. I'll bring out your sister. And she clapped her hands, and from a door behind her throne came one of her fairy ladies-in-waiting, carrying Katie's little sister. But then another lady-in-waiting came, carrying Katie's little sister. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you can tell which one is your little sister, you can take her home. But I'm keeping the luck, said Queen Zal. Well, at this point, Katie didn't care about the luck. She just wanted her sister. 7. Oh, yes, like the whetstones. She reached into her pocket and took out the ointment and dabbed some on each eye. And yes, now she could see that the other ladies-in-waiting were just carrying bundles of sticks that were waving in the wind. There was Lainey, her sister. She reached for her sister, and the little chubby arms went around her neck once more. And now all Katie could think of was getting out of there, but she noticed that everyone was staring at her hand. The ladies-in-waiting, the lookers-on, and most of all, Queen Zal. Something interests you, said Katie. Perhaps you would like a trifle for that pot of ointment. But Katie had seen their interest. Perhaps, she said, if you give safe, swift passage for me and Lainey back to our home and return the McLaren luck twofold, and as long as there are Fae, and as long as there are McLaren, you never bedevil us again. Done, said the queen, and that pot of ointment disappeared from Katie's hand. Before she knew which way was up, she and the baby were flying again over the forest, over the glen, back to her home, twice as fast as they had come. And the door burst open, and her father came out and said, Katie, you won't believe the luck. The cow has had a calf. Your brothers have each found gold coins on the road. And look, our larder is full for the year. Katie, cuddling her little sister, said, ah, yes, I told you I was the best bargainer, Father.